This is whiskey, Johnny Walker's Scotch whiskey, from this place and these people, aye, Scotch makers, creating the bold and complex flavour of Johnny Walker Black Label. Step right up.
WhiskyCast. Brought to you by Redbreast. The definitive single pot still Irish whiskey. Those in the know Redbreast.
Crown Royal held this party in New York City to unveil its 2018 release in the Noble Collection series. The 13-year-old Blender's Mash won a top award even before it was released, taking top Canadian Whisky honors in the 2018 San Francisco World Spirits Competition.
It started with a discussion between our innovation and the blending group. So we really, probably about a year before the product release, we kind of had a lot of discussion about what we wanted to put together, what kind of whiskey we were looking for. So they gave me the opportunity to go into our inventory and kind of look for available older whiskeys and what I could do to put together a unique blend.
You might be thinking, what exactly is a Blender's Mash?
It's a corn-based, corn majority mash bill with rye and barley malt. We do refer to it as one of our whiskey types, as a corn whiskey kind of bourbon style type product. So
you can say it here; it's okay.
Well, it's by design and the way we put it together, it kind of it has that kind of it's a a unique flavor profile that does well for our Crown Royal product. So.
At Diageo's distillery in Gimli, Manitoba, where Crown Royal is made, they distill and mature 5 different types of whiskeys that are used to make the various Crown Royal blends, 2 base whiskeys, and 3 flavoring whiskeys. The Blender's Mash is one of those 3, but that's not what they call it at the distillery.
The flavoring still is key. Now, one time through the still, you're going to get a product that's going to be around 62 to 63%. Off that, we're going to be calling it low wine again, or we're going to call it bourbon, or we're going to call it rye in our plant.
Rye? Okay. But bourbon?
Well, internally, we've always referred to it as that, but, it's not a product of the U.S. We're not going to call it that outside of the U.S. But internally, if we were to make that here in New York City, where we're chatting tonight, it would technically be a bourbon mash bill, 2/3 corn, 1/3 rye.
Remember, bourbon can only be made in the United States. That's protected not just by U.S. law, but also by various international treaties, including the North American Free Trade Agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. There's nothing wrong, though, with using bourbon mash as an internal reference, unless you put that term on a bottle. That's exactly what Crown Royal did in July of 2017, receiving label approval from the U.S. Treasury Department's Tax and Trade Bureau for the predecessor of the Noble Collection 13-year-old, the no-age statement Crown Royal Bourbon Mash. It hit the market in late 2017 and did not go over well with bourbon purists. Someone, or someones, the TTB won't say who, complained that Bourbon Mash crossed the line. In an email to WhiskyCast, TTB spokesman Thomas Hogue explained the agency's response. The initial labels were approved in error. Once the error was brought to our attention, we took corrective action. Consistent with prior practice, TTB allowed a use-up for the original labels and worked with the submitter to ensure accurate labeling.
We did get approval. We had a great liquid. We got approval. Conversations took place. We said, you know what, we'll change the name, and it will now be Blender's Mash, which is great for us, too, because we wanted to launch a blender series to focus on those individual component whiskeys, and this allows us to really kick that off on a strong note. But for me, at the end of the day, the liquid never changed, and it's the liquid that is what makes it special.
You may still find some bourbon mash on the shelves at retailers, like we did with these bottles, and it's still sold under that name in Canada. In fact, the original plan was to use that name for the Noble Collection 13-year-old as well. It was entered under that name in the San Francisco competition, since the entry deadline came while the labeling issues were still being worked out. And the competition's website originally listed it under that name in the awards results. It has since been corrected. For more Cask-Strength conversation on whiskeys, with the people who make them and the people who drink them, join us each week for WhiskyCast. I'm Mark Gillespie.